what's a sex worker? Anyone who works in the sex industry willingly. Some examples include people who exchange sex for money, provide phone sex, are cam girls, strippers, and dominatrixes. There's a difference between sex work and sex trafficking. When a person willingly takes part in the sale of sex, it's consensual and doesn't affect their human rights. That is called sex work. On the other hand, when a person takes part in the sale of sex through threat, abduction, or other means of coercion, that is called sex trafficking. There's a difference, and it needs to be acknowledged. People often wonder, why would you become a sex worker? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Some sex workers choose to do sex work because it's the best option they have. Sure, some sex workers struggle with poverty and don't have many other job options. Some sex workers choose it because of better pay and more flexibility. And some pursue sex work to explore and express their own sexuality. Especially living in the Bible Belt, there can be stigma around what these people do for a living. It can be seen as a sin. There's only one strip club in town, and because of that, there is less of an understanding about sex work. Although there is the Asheville Sex Worker Outreach Program, sex work as a whole generally isn't discussed here, and there aren't many protections surrounding the workers. When someone is known to do sex work, they are frequently only viewed as just that. People don't usually acknowledge their skills or their personality. Some sex workers are highly educated or great friends or super creative. But most of the time, people just assume that they're things like bad parents or daughters or dirty. But if you're watching this, you should know that isn't accurate. Life can be made unnecessarily difficult for sex workers. For example, it's hard to sign a lease. Usually a co-signer is needed. It's hard to get jobs after being a sex worker because of the stigma and reputation, and you're not taken seriously. In places where sex work is criminalized, police have used condoms as evidence of sex work. To avoid arrest, some sex workers have engaged in unprotected sex with clients, therefore increasing their risk of HIV infection. Also, because of COVID's lockdown, sex workers hardly have any income. They cannot get groceries, pay rent, or afford health care. And that includes the testing for COVID-19. They may be unable to isolate safely, which increases their risk of catching and spreading COVID-19. Sex workers are disproportionately affected by violence. The perpetrators of violence include law enforcement, clients, people posing as clients, or medical personnel and peers. While there's research on violence against sex workers, there's not very much. Studies estimate that 40 to 70% of sex workers experience violence in just 1 year. Charlotte-Mecklenburg police announced the arrest of 2 individuals in the homicides of 2 trans women sex workers who were shot to death in hotel rooms less than 2 weeks apart. This is an extremely marginalized group of people, and due to this, many people have not even heard about the news. This is happening right in our home state, and we can't just ignore this or forget about it. There needs to be protections in place, and that starts with decriminalization. It would help sex workers find justice and protection when they're abused. Currently, sex workers fear coming to the police due to its criminalization. With these protections in place, It would provide sex workers with safety, and they wouldn't need pimps to try and protect them. Rather, they would have the law on their side like everyone else. Decriminalization is starting around the country. Decriminalization is possible. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office announced that it would no longer prosecute prostitution and unlicensed massage. This could completely change the United States criminal justice system's approach to sex work. So what can you do? Well, refer to them as sex workers, not just prostitutes or hoes, etc. Remember that they're much more than only a sex worker. They're complex human beings. Advocate for decriminalization. If you're an employer, consider hiring a former sex worker. And most importantly, be kind.